Peace be with you everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Trevor, very grateful to have you here. And today's video we're going to be going over my weekly rotation for the closing out of the fall season. So fall officially ended on the 21st and the rotation in this video is following up with what I wore all the way through Christmas Eve. So starting off with, I believe the 18th was Monday, was Dior Sauvage Elixir. Really a perfect one for the fall and winter transitional period there. That licorice, lavender, and heavy spice combination really does a good job of driving home a good combination of light and dark. Something fresh with the lavender, classic masculine cleanliness, along with some of those dark qualities from a little bit of the ambery and licorice touches in here. One of the most mass appealing fragrances in my regular rotation and one of my most worn fragrances of this past year, 2023. I was going through and cataloging my weekly rotations throughout the year, and this was, I believe, my #1 most worn fragrance for the entire year, and for good reason. I think this is great for the early parts of spring during the March months, as well as right now all the way from October right up in through the beginning parts of March there. So it covers a good range of wearing opportunities in the weather patterns throughout the course of about half the year for me. Excellent stuff. Really have fallen in love with this fragrance. It's one of my go-to signatures, and I think even though it's pretty dense and spicy, it's easily something that could be worn during the in a climate-controlled environment throughout the entirety of the whole year. So that's Dior Sauvage Elixir from Monday. So I was cataloging my weekly, or my most worn fragrances of 2023, so I think Wednesday and Thursday I wore 2 fragrances to help bump them up to make a top 10 list for a video of my most worn fragrances. I had about 8 of them that I had worn at least 5 times this year, and there was about a 10-way tie with a bunch of fragrances that I wore 4 times. So Wednesday and Thursday I wore 2 fragrances just to bump them up to 5 times wearing experiences, but this one was one that I had recently added to the collection and only wore for either the first or second time full wearing on Tuesday. This is Maison Francis Kurkdjian Grand Soir. So this is a really simplistic style, clean amber. It wears a little bit fresh. I think there might be some lavender in here that gives it a little bit of a more airy, almost soapy type quality. That's got a gummy texture, almost like a gum resin that you would get to create chewing gum off of a tree. And then the beautiful amber-centric scent profile is the major descriptors for this fragrance. A gummy texture, an ambery scent profile, and a clean and fresh wearing experience. Really easy to wear. This one as a signature throughout the colder months. I think, again, like Sauvage Elixir, you could wear this easily all year round in climate controlled environments, because it does have this slight effervescence to it. Nothing ginger-like or sparkly in that sense in terms of a texture, but it has a sparkly sort of color theme that accompanies the tone of the fragrance. It does have a sparkly tone to it. I think the bottle does a good job of representing the scent profile here. You've got the sparkly gold lettering and the amber juice in here, and yeah, there's a reason this one is so popular as it is. I think it is a little bit easier to wear than some of the other ambers in my collection. However, I think in terms of my preferred taste or my favorite scent profiles of ambers, there's a handful of ones I prefer over this, but I think this one is going to be the best in terms of ease of wear and inoffensiveness, whereas something like, say, Costume National Soul, I think I enjoy a little bit more because it's a little bit more dense and dark, but there's like an oud note in there that might not be the easiest to pull off at times. Definitely this one is easier to do in a wider spectrum of weather patterns than some of the more darker, heavier ones. And there's another amber fragrance in this rotation coming up that I did wear that is a little bit more challenging and hard to pull off, but well worth it because the scent profile I find is way better than Grand Soir. Okay, so again, like I said, I wore a couple fragrances to push them into my most worn for the year. This one I had worn 4 times, but this was my 5th wearing of the year. Perfect day for it. We actually almost got up to 60 degrees on Wednesday here where I'm at, so it was a pretty almost spring-like weather pattern. We're tailing out the end of the fall time, so you get that nice transitional period between a hot and cold, or a hotter weather into cooler weather. So I reached for this one. It is a fougere and one of the best of all time in my opinion. This is Rive Gauche's Pour Homme, and this is a beautiful creamy barbershop fragrance. There's an intense creamy textural feel in here that you don't quite get from all of the barbershop fragrances. This does a really good job of emulating that shaving foam, and then it adds a little bit of extra sweetness, an extra sweet quality to it. There's a star anise note in here that kind of darkens it up and makes it a little bit more on the creamy side, or sorry, on the sweeter side of things. So it really does a good job of making this almost like a cream confection in some sense, of like a shaving foam, cleanly, soapy vibe. Just incredible stuff. Jacques Havillet is the perfumer who is now the in-house perfumer for all of the Louis Vuitton fragrances that are getting a lot of hype right now. So excellent nose behind this one. Really great scent profile. One of my favorite wearing experiences throughout the week this week. Really glad that I reached for this one and decided to give it a further chance to bump it up into my top 10 most worn for 2023. This is discontinued, however, and hard to find bottles of this, which I think are 2.7 ounce. I forgot what that comes out to, like 90 ml, I believe, 80 or 90 mLs. Hard to find this for less than $200 or $300. I don't quite think it's worth that. It definitely has a designer feel to it in terms of its overall wearing experience, but it's definitely, I mean, if you're a collector, this is something to at least get your nose on, try to find a sample of, and wear at least once. So that's Rive Gauche Pour Homme for Wednesday. And so Thursday was another one that I had only worn 4 times, but decided to wear this week in order to bump it up into my top 10 most worn. So my 5th time wearing it for the year 2023, and honestly I might even wear it a few more times before the new year. This is Dior Homme Intense. So while I do prefer the scent profile of Dior Homme Parfum, again, like I said with the Grand Soir, that one, the Dior Homme Parfum, has a little bit of an oud and a little bit of a leathery kind of sensation going on with it. It gets a little bit more dark, rugged, and harder to pull off. I think this one does a great job of making that scent profile a little bit less offensive and easier to wear, even though the lipsticky iris scent profile in general is not that mass appealing. I have yet to get a compliment on this Dior Homme Parfum or Dior Homme Original, but they are my favorite scent profile in all of my collection for me personally. And yeah, this just has that beautiful, nice cacao powder sensation, beautiful chocolatey style sweetness, waxy, sort of lipsticky textural feel, and just elegance in a bottle. Really nice little dent that I've put in there since purchasing this. I believe I picked this up this year in 2023, so definitely one of my more worn fragrances for the year, and for good reason. A classic for a reason. Definitely worth getting your nose on this one, and I believe one of the more readily available Dior Homme offerings. I know that the majority of them have been taken off the US market, but this one seems to be the easiest one to get a hold of, and well worth owning and trying at least once. So that's Dior Homme Intense for Thursday. Okay, so Friday and Saturday I wore 2 fragrances, a daytime and a nighttime fragrance. Friday, I like to wear niche fragrances, and we were gearing up towards the holiday. It was going to be my last shift at work before Christmas, so I wanted to go for something a little bit on theme, and decided to rock Enigma Parfum Cologne. This is kind of like a nice, powdery, silky, textured root beer or Coca-Cola, more leaning into a Coca-Cola, spicy cola kind of scent profile than a more earthy root beer. But yeah, the silky texture and the powdery texture are really one of the things that drives this home for me. Being a luxury style fragrance, you definitely get a sensation of the expensiveness of the ingredients in here, partially coming in from a really nice, well done jasmine as well. That gives it a thick feeling, despite it wearing as a bit of a light cola. It wears light, but it has a certain density at the same time. It's a really good juxtaposition in terms of the way that it's been constructed. Lasts a very long time. I put it on Friday and could still smell it when I was taking a shower that night. So when I didn't take a shower until maybe about like 6 or 7, I put this on at 8 before I went into work. So it lasted almost like 10 to 12 hours. Really great performing stuff, really beautiful scent profile, nice festive vibe to it, and perfect for transitioning from the fall into the winter. That cola vibe I think really does a good job for the month of November and December combined. So that's Roja Enigma Parfum Cologne, also known as Creation E. Okay, so my scent of the night for Friday, I didn't go out. I almost went to my brother's. He was having some people over, but my daughter and I were both kind of beat. We were ready to take a nap a little bit. It'd been a long day so far, but this was a perfect one to wind down with. One of my favorites to enjoy around the house. Not too sure how often I'll be wearing it out, just because it has a heavy boozy quality to it that almost makes me feel like people will ask me if I'm drinking, but it's definitely one of my favorites for cozying up with. It goes in the same scent family, for me at least, as things like Intense Cafe and Mocha Wood, but takes it with a boozy whiskey twist instead of coffee. This is Nasomatto Baraonda, so really great one for the month of December. I don't think I put this in my top 20 Decembers list, but easily could have made it. Really beautiful stuff. It dries down into a classic sort of sweet, musky rose, but opens up with a heavy, thick whiskey. Definitely gives a little bit more of a masculine edge to that scent profile, but it keeps in with that cozy, silky, sweet, cloudy sensation, comforting cloud sensation that the Intense Cafe Mocha Wood vibes give out, but with a nice whiskey vibe going on. And really beautiful, heavy concentration. 30 mLs from Nasomatto is what they come in, and definitely something I'm going to be enjoying wearing. Wish I would have got it earlier. I think it might be more autumnal for me than wintertime, but it definitely has a heavy dose of sweetness that carries it through colder months. Really excited to wear it in February and January as well once the snow starts to fall, see how it performs then, as it is a somewhat newer addition to the collection, but one of my favorites and my #1 go-to cozy fragrance for around the house. So that's Nasomatto Baraonda for Friday night. Okay, Saturday. Saturday we had a really heavy, dense fog roll in. Like, this was the most dense fog that I have ever experienced in my life. It was really so thick that it was hard to drive at all. And I think this fragrance was a perfect companion for that weather. It almost felt like Halloween on Christmas, kind of like the Blink-182 song. And I think this one does a perfect job of straddling that line, or at least one of the top ones in my collection for that occasion. I think Ambre Noir from Lalique could have also fit into that environment, but this one was king of the day for Saturday during the day. This is Serge Lutens Chergui. Wore this the majority of the day until nightfall descended. Really a perfect accent to a foggy environment. It has a nice melancholic appeal to it, a nice deep, dark, dense, gooey, rich tobacco honey combination alongside a little bit of a scratchy hay accord that gives it some texture, as well as a little bit of a powdery, waxy texture from an iris in here that really doesn't do so much to the scent profile as much as it offers up a really unique textural feel to this fragrance, which I would say is dominantly an earthy tobacco and honey. But yeah, just beautiful, dark, sensual, well-crafted, high quality. One of my favorites in my collection, point blank period, and a perfect companion for the day on Saturday in that deep, dense fog. And then for the nighttime on Saturday, I washed up and me and my daughter went out to visit my wife at the restaurant, popped in to see her for a little while, say hi, and this was my fragrance that I wore out that evening into the fog. This is the a little bit harder to pull off, more rugged, leathery style Amber that I spoke about at the beginning when commenting on Grand Soir. This is Issey Miyake's Noir Ambre. So like I said, a rugged, leathery, smoky amber. This just has everything that I'm looking for in a cold weather scent. It has sweetness, but it also has masculine, smoky, dark qualities to it that are perfect for the more bitter aspects of the winter time, whereas like the ambery sweetness I enjoy more at the early onset of winter, kind of trailing out of the autumn where you have the whole Halloween through Christmas vibe going on, whereas the smoky darkness I enjoy sort of from New Year's up until you know, like Valentine's February, early March. This is just also such a masterpiece fragrance. Sad that it basically was very hard to find when it first came out and is more or less unavailable now that it's been discontinued, as is the case with seemingly most of the cool weather Issey Miyake fragrances. Absolute gem though. Definitely keep your eyes out for this one. Well worth anywhere between, I would be happy paying anything under $130 for this. I think $150 is about the cap where I would go for. Anything more than that is a little bit extorting the price on this one, but keep your eye out for it on discounters as well as Facebook groups, because this is in my opinion a must-try fragrance for sure. So that's Issey, Homme, Noir, Ambre, Saturday night. Okay, so for Sunday was Christmas Eve. Today is Christmas Day when I'm filming this one, and I still had a few errands that I was out running around doing for Christmas Eve, so I was wearing this fragrance for the majority of my day during the daytime on Christmas Eve. A perfect companion for the day in my opinion. This is Chanel's Egoiste, the Eau de Toilette, and this is really kind of a little bit of a medicinal office style chai tea. So it's got a really nice, sweet, soft, powdery, and spicy aspect that the chai tea brings to the table, and then there's a nice rose in there that gives it a beautiful kind of upscale, classy, office-style allure to it. And the overall texture is a little bit chalky, so you could think of like a dried chai tea powder, like instant chai tea mix or something like that, with a little bit of a bitter accent from the rose and some more herbal qualities going on in here. A little bit mature, but I think it's a perfect companion for a snowy day, and something that you could wear that has some depth and richness from cinnamon and sandalwood, but also is just easy and inoffensive and light at the same time. So it's a good juxtaposition of dense and light together. This is Chanel's Egoiste for the daytime on Christmas Eve. And finally, the fragrance that I wore to my wife's family's house, which we went to on Christmas Eve. We're going to my parents' stay on Christmas Day. Another one that didn't quite make my top 20 list for December, although it should have. I was still getting to know it a little bit. I wasn't sure if it was more of a February fragrance because of the deep, rich, chocolatey quality in here, but I think this is earthy enough that it belongs closer to the fall, and definitely something perfect for Christmas time, because I obviously selected it as my scent of the day for Christmas Eve dinner. This is Les Indemodables Vanille Havanne. So probably the most hyped up from the house. Not my favorite. I've only tried 3 of them, and my favorite currently from them is Fougère Amarud, but I do have a bias in that Fougère and barbershop style fragrances are my favorite genre, but this is excellent stuff. I have worn it outside in a bitter cold day, and the wafts that were coming up around me on my wearing experiences out in the cold were quite enjoyable, quite magnificent, and this was a welcome companion for the night on Christmas Eve. Very, like I said, earthy chocolate. It smells like it's a natural cacao that has been harvested just freshly, and you still have to do some refinement to it. A nice vanillic sort of sweetness also carrying in and amping up it, so that way it's not quite so baker's chocolate-esque, although it does have a little bit of that vibe going on in there. And then the tobacco also brings in a little bit of more of an earthy tone to it. Just very well done. A little bit linear. You do get some progression in terms of the wearing experience. I think there's a boozy accord that it opens up with, and you really get that for maybe like the first half an hour, but then it starts to settle into that more earthy chocolate tobacco vibe that carries out through a very long duration. I say I get about 10 hours with this fragrance as well, and very expensive. I think it's about $260 for a 50 ml. I think I was able to pick it up for $200 even for a Black Friday day sale, and from time to time these come up for maybe $180 on fragrancebuy.ca, so definitely add yourself to the mailing list if you're interested in this. But sample first. I think they've got a discovery set on Lucky Scent. Shout out to Rich Mitch for putting me on to that, and yeah, definitely check this house out. They are one of, if not my favorite right now in the modern perfumery scene. So that's Vanille Havanne for Saturday, Christmas Eve. So I'm wishing you all very happy holidays. I hope you have many blessed moments with your families today and throughout the course of the rest of the week leading up to New Year's. And as always, I really appreciate you sticking with me to the end of this video. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.